Hello once again, chess enthusiasts. I recently completed a video of just over 6 minutes to do with a Rex Solis study, and I deliberately made it for kids, and it's done rather well. I thought I'd do another one. I think it's important to get the younger brigade interested in chess at the earliest possible stage. The earlier the better. And the Rex Solis was an interesting problem. And this is an equally interesting one, quite different, but it's by a Monegasque, meaning to say he was from Monaco. And he lived 1932 to 2005. His name is Casa. I've already put one or two of his studies on here, but this is a real beaut, and I was going to do some shorts and divide it into parts, but I thought it's just too good for that. So just take a look at this position, if you would. This one, in fact, took me a few hours. So I'll always give you the position as it is. If I can do it quickly, I'll tell you. If I take a long time, I'll tell you that as well. If I can't do it, but I think it's something that needs to be presented on here, then I'll have a look at the solution and I'll present it, and I'll admit to the fact that I couldn't. I've done that a few times, not many, but a few. But I was going to give up on this, thinking that it's not possible to do it. But I did manage it in the end, so here it is. What I would say is, I realized at once that if black's knight were not covering f3, then queen f3 would be mate on the move. And that's easy enough to see, isn't it? Also, it occurred to me that the queen on f2 would be a good idea. Now, just imagine, I often do this, if you could just plonk this here, he'd only have one defense, namely knight to here, then you take the knight off and it would be checkmate. So these are ideas to bear in mind. Finally, if black's pawn, say, were not here at all, or at b2, let's just say that, then what you could do is you could try queen c2 check. Now, black is forced to play e4. So we then play knight d5. Now the idea here is that black is becoming weak on the 5th rank. He's in danger of having a pawn pinned, which is advantageous. Now, should he play king e5 here, then all that we need to do is to take his knight off, and that is checkmate. So there's nothing to be gained from that, but there's nothing to benefit him either. From taking this knight here. So that's it. We're imagining that the pawn is on b2. We played queen c2 check. He's played the forced move of e5. Instead of moving his king and allowing himself to be mated, he takes the knight. Right. So what do we do now? Can you see the winning move? Well, the winning move, of course, is queen e4. That is checkmate in 3 moves, because he can't take here, it's pinned. Now that's all in theory. It matters not a jot in this game, because the pawn is, in fact, there. And the queen is there. So that is the original position, the starting position, with the phalanx of pawns there. So how do we achieve all of this? What is the key move to give you a chance of playing those sorts of variations? This is the question. This is what Alex Casa clearly had in mind and did so well with it. Well, the key move is queen e2. Already we're eyeing over f2, and like I explained just a moment ago, that will lead eventually to checkmate. Just bear in mind that should he play his rook to g7 check, since this is not a checking move, then knight taking here would be checkmate. We'll just demonstrate. Rook to there, knight to there, and the game is all over. So he does not have that check available to him. So we'll just put that back. So we've just played queen e2. Well, there exist here 5 lines, all others are useless. What we'll do is we'll look at the capturing of the rook first of all. Now, if you imagine that he takes here, he is relinquishing his grip on f3, so all that you need to do is to play queen f3 mate. So ostensibly that is no use. Alternatively, should he take the rook with his own rook, what do we do here? Well, this nicely fits in to playing h takes g4. Now, as can be seen, this knight is doing a good job here, covering f4 and g5. So the forced move, since the pawn is covered by the queen, is to go here. And then, yet again, queen f3. So we're arriving at the position that we really want, to be able to mate him on the f line. So right, we'll put all of that back, and we'll safely say that capturing that rook on g4 is no use. So that is the original position. We played the key move of queen e2. Those two variations are out the way. Now, like I say, moving these two bishops would be meaningless. It's these pawns that need our consideration. So what happens when they move? Well, let's just try this one. What do we do against this? This would give us problems, other than what we're going to see at the moment. The answer to this is to play here, knight d4 check. Now, again, as already demonstrated earlier on, if he moves his king here, it's queen h2 mate, because we have our queen on the second rank. Of course, he can take. And this is where we get the position to where we wanted it in the very early stages of this video. Black's pawn is pinned here, can't take the queen is covered by the rook, checkmate. So e4 doesn't work. So he has two other pawn moves. Let's try them. Just to reiterate, that's the original position. Instead of e4, try d4. What happens then? Take a good look at that for a moment. This move here and the one that follows, they're not easy to fathom. Over the board, against the clock, it will be difficult. Well, in reply to this, you need what I would describe as the super brilliant rook f4 check. Why is it so good? Well, because e takes f4 is forced. The rook's covered by the knight and the king can't move. What do we do now? How do we checkmate him? Well, we do it this way. Knight d5, and that's mate, because this pawn is pinned and the queen controls the e line. Isn't that nice? What a wonderful checkmate that is. Just take one good look at that. Right, so let's just have a look at the final variation. That again is the original position. So with our key, queen e2. So we've looked at the two captures of the rook, we've looked at e4, and we've looked at d4. What about this? When I looked at this, I thought this cooked it, but it doesn't. This task looks impossible, since neither rook f4 check nor knight d4 check works. Because if we play to here, so let's say, then you take the rook, yeah. And now if you try and play knight d4 now, he's controlling the e line, yeah, admirably. There's no pawn to take the knight, no. But unfortunately, the bishop can just whip it off, and there's no checkmate. You see the problem? So let's just take that back for a moment. So that's why rook to f4 does not work after c4, because of this bishop here. And I did say that knight d4 check doesn't work either, of course hoping that he'd take it here, right, thus pinning the pawn, and then queen e4 backed up by the rook is checkmate. However, this nasty dark squared bishop spoils everything there as well. You see my point? So neither of those works. So just to make sure that we have this absolutely correct, that is the original position. Our key move Queen E2, our final variation C4, with this opening the diagonal for the dark squared bishop. Now this causes problems. So how do we win this? Can you see the winning move here, the second move for white? It's not easy to see. But if you think about how we've checkmated in one or two variations, the move here is Queen E4 check. Okay, now this move is forced. And you're probably thinking, well, hang on a second. If he plays knight to here, sure, the pawn is pinned, but he can take it. Well, he can, yeah. But that is checkmate. Now that is really neat, isn't it? That's the killer punch. I do hope you enjoyed this one, young and old, and bye-bye for now.